What if I said that within you, you had access to insane creative powers that ancient civilizations, mystics, sages of past knew about and utilized and took advantage of? And again, not only were these ancients aware of this power that lays dormant right now within you, they knew how to use it to create their realities, to harmonize with the laws of the universe, to do incredible things. You even look at some of the things that our ancient ancestors built long ago, and we still today wonder how they did it. Now, this power that I am talking about, of course, lays within what we call the third eye. This is the spiritual eye. It even has a physical representation known as the pineal gland. And it is the sixth chakra, if you want to come from that, right above the throat chakra and right below the crown chakra, representing an energy center that exists right around here within the middle of your head. Now, in this video, I really want to go deep into what this third eye is, what it can actually do for you, how to unlock these powers, what that's going to look like when you do it, and how to make it more a part of your everyday life so that you are able to create your reality more beautifully. You are able to live more of the life you want to live. Because when you open the third eye, when you activate the pineal gland, when you have that ability that every single one of us has, things just start to change in your life. You gain access to things that you didn't have access to before. So let's jump right into it by covering what it is first and foremost. And I kind of already mentioned it, but your third eye, also known as the sixth chakra, and in its physical form, the pineal gland, is located right here, kind of above your eyebrows in the middle of your head. And it kind of goes back towards the middle, the pineal gland at least, in the middle of your head as well, kind of in the center. And I'll have something come on screen so you can kind of see the exact physical location of this. But this is more than just a physical organ. It has so much power laid dormant in it, and we're going to go over what it is, what it does, and of course how to unlock your third eye. Now, something that's very interesting about the pineal gland in particular is that this might be the first time you've ever heard of this gland, or I almost guarantee for most of you, not all of you, but for a lot of you, you heard it maybe more recently in the last few years, and you didn't hear about this from, people who brought you up, or in the schooling system, in the education system. It's something that absolutely exists within us, and yet I never learned about it in school. I never heard about it until much later, probably within the last few years. And why is that? Because there is so much power, so much that we're able to access when we activate the pineal gland, when we open our third eyes. And yet, we were never really taught about this powerful thing that lay within us. We were never taught about how this will help us access our intuition, our higher selves, spiritual realms, so to speak, to give us much more of an aligned kind of feel to these universal laws, to this universal power, to, again, our kind of spiritual selves, our higher selves. And the funny thing is, the pineal gland, the third eye, was something that our ancient ancestors were very, very aware of. In fact, you can see physical representations in ancient monuments and buildings and cities of the pineal gland. The pineal gland actually is shaped like a pine cone. And if you look at sometimes the area surrounding the pineal gland and the pineal gland itself, it looks like an eye. And this is where the symbol of the Eye of Horus comes from in ancient Egypt, which we see all over hieroglyphics, which represents kind of wisdom and knowledge and intuition and things of this nature. In Buddhism, we see the pine cone used time and time again throughout many different religions, especially in the ancient world. And so our ancient ancestors were not only aware of the pineal gland, they were aware of what it looked like, its physical representation, its importance, and almost obsessed about it. They seemed to be aware that it connected us to higher realms, to higher levels of wisdom, to higher just intuition that can help us in our everyday life today. And so why was this? Why was it so revered back in that day? It's because of these reasons, but why isn't it being taught about today? Ultimately, why it's not being taught about today in the mainstream is up for debate, and this is not a video to kind of get into some conspiratorial thing. That's a rabbit hole you can certainly go down. But today is more about making you aware of this, if you're not aware of it, giving you some tools you can use to activate it so that you can actually bring something into your life that's going to help you. That's what this is about. We want to focus on the practicality of this. And so something that was so revered by our ancient ancestors and so utilized, I think is something for us to look at, because a lot of times, a lot of the wisdom that we discover today is just wisdom we are rediscovering that a lot of our ancestors were aware of. And so let's jump into a little deeper what the third eye is and ultimately how to use it, how to unlock it, because that's where it's going to actually help you in your life. So before we go over how to more tap into this and unlock it, let's go over some of the things that you can expect when you do unlock it. Now, you've already heard me talk about how it's going to give you further access to your intuition, to spiritual realms, even like beings at that point if you want to go that far. But that might seem like just words, so I want to give it in more practical terms best I can. Now, understand when you're accessing the intuition, you're accessing these other realms, it's a little hard to explain because it's something that's beyond the mind, right? It's something that's beyond just the physical realm, so to speak, in the five senses. We can even call the third eye almost like gaining access to our sixth sense, this more spiritual sense, more energetic sense. But, broadly speaking, it gives us access more to that intuition, to what we could call our higher self, to other beings that are, I'll just say, at a different level of consciousness or a higher level of consciousness. And you don't need to necessarily believe that or not to benefit from opening your third eye or actually being able to. And you may find as you start to, then you become more open to these ideas. But ultimately, let's go over how to practically, or what happens in a more practical sense, how it will actually benefit your life when you start to unlock the third eye. Now, first and foremost, from a physical sense, you will start to be able to release more naturally occurring DMT from your pineal gland, which I believe it produces or at least enhances within you. Again, this is another reason why I think it's not taught about, because it helps us basically have our own DMT, natural DMT factory, but many of us have what's called calcified pineal glands, meaning it makes it very hard to access this DMT and the things that we would benefit from these things. And you only need to look at people who've gone on DMT journeys, done things like ayahuasca that also have DMT in it, to understand the profound benefits of this. I've had my own experiences, not with taking synthetic DMT, but my own natural DMT through a near-death experience, also through breathwork and other things I'm going to give you as practices. And one way I can describe it is it kind of gives you access to energies like unconditional love, which is kind of, again, maybe you don't think is too practical, but if you've ever experienced just a heightened level of love or unconditional love, being able to feel that and experience that more and more in your life is insanely practical. It benefits your life in magical ways, and if you've even gotten a taste of that, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. When you actually activate your third eye or your pineal gland, you get it to vibrate, you'll find maybe flashes of light kind of coming across your eyes. You may find kaleidoscoped vision, fractals, like kind of like these really coherent, interesting, almost spontaneous patterns. And so you can even go on full-on kind of vision quests or kind of visions where you're almost transported to another realm. One way I like to look at it, or kind of one way I like to explain it, is sometimes when you do this, like when I come from a very deep breath work session or even meditation session where I've put my energy kind of in my pineal gland, and again, we'll go over how to do this, it's like I've gone elsewhere, and when I come back to this reality, it feels like I'm coming back to it, like I was literally not here and went elsewhere. And typically, a lot of the time, you'll feel emotions like unconditional love, like I mentioned, peace, joy, just a new level of calmness when you do this. And many times when you do this, you may find that certain information and wisdom starts coming through from outside of yourself, from the known, right? Because we have plenty of information stored within our minds that we can recall some of it. But it's information that kind of comes beyond that, which we can then take into our lives, integrate it in order to improve our lives. Now, what I've just been mentioning is kind of when you have a more deep kind of third eye opening, but ultimately when you do open your third eye and start to live more in this way, there are things you can integrate in your day-to-day, because I don't go around with kaleidoscope vision or being transported elsewhere, throughout the whole day. Maybe when I do a session, I do some breath work or something, this still can happen to me, but ultimately it's about, in my eyes, taking what we learn and integrating it into the day-to-day and walking around consciously and aware with this third eye open, which gives us better discernment, helps us access our intuition more, does allow for messages to come through, and in my eyes, it just allows us to make much better decisions from a place of power, from a place of love, from a place of, what actually matters to us. And this is where the practicality of it starts to come into our lives. So here are some of the things you may start to notice as you, in your day-to-day, as you begin to open this. First and foremost is that you'll become more sensitive to energy. And you can say that just more sensitive to emotions, which is energy in motion. Once you open, again, the third eye, it's beyond the physical senses. Our 5 physical senses that have to do with the physical world. And you get to sense beyond that. Many of us can forget, even though we may have heard this information before, or you may have been told this and been like, I believe that, but we sometimes forget that our world is energetic at its core and that we are energetic beings. And that when we can actually sense energy, when we're more in tune with that, that's an insanely valuable thing. You may not know this, but, and this is a scientific fact, that 99.999999% of everything you see, perceive, just the whole universe essentially, is empty space / energy, and about 0.00001% is actual physical matter. And so when you look at that and you start to see that actually that's a very real thing, you start to realize that all of this is energy. Our whole world, our whole universe is made of energy. It moves in accordance to the language of energy. And so by activating this and becoming more sensitive to energy, it's like you're learning a new language, the language of the universe that you're now able to speak in and understand. So you'll notice yourself becoming more intuitive, and you'll notice yourself becoming kind of more sensitive to energy. And when I say intuitive, again, I'm talking beyond your 5 senses. Seemingly information comes in and you start gaining these insights and downloads that are beyond just the information you're taking in through your physical senses. This might be that a certain idea just comes out of nowhere and it's the perfect solution to something you were trying to figure out. Or to go take this action versus that action, it feels lighter to go in that direction energetically and heavier to go in this direction, and you do the light thing and it ends up with an amazing outcome where if you've had moments where you've gone for the heavy thing, it's kind of led to more stress, et cetera, et cetera. And this is something that becomes much easier to discern when your third eye is open. It becomes much easier to kind of integrate and assimilate this information that's coming through, and you start to become someone who prioritizes it more than the heady kind of sensory information that you're getting. Now, it has a place, but when you start prioritizing the thing that literally makes up the vast, vast, vast majority of our universe, it goes without saying, or it stands to reason that you're going to be able to operate in that universe much more effectively. And of course, when you are able to communicate more in this language of energy or read it more effectively, it gives you a much better discernment between when something is energetically aligned versus not. For example, you might find there are some people who say certain things, right? And so you're hearing it through one of your physical senses, your ears, but you might energetically feel like there's something off about it and understand that what they're saying is not what their true intentions are. And how valuable would that be in your everyday life, or the situation or energy of a situation or an event, or how a person is showing up, right? Being able to read that energy and be able to do it very clearly with full confidence is incredibly valuable and can allow for you to continually move in the quote-unquote right directions, or the directions that are best for you time and time again. In my experience, and the experience of many others too, you may find that certain things start to just work out for you. And what I mean, there's many things when I've having opened my third eye that I'll get led to, and I'll almost forget about other things I was supposed to be worrying about. And then when I actually remember those things, they seem to have been taken care of, as though I was led to the things I needed to go actually give attention to. And these things that I might have been worrying about in the past just kind of fell off and took care of themselves, and everything worked out perfectly, right? So you might find that that's happening with you, where so many people are trying to juggle so many different things. They're trying to do 5, 10, 15 moves ahead instead of focusing on what their intuition, what they're being guided to in this moment. And when you're thinking 5, 10, 15 moves ahead, you're always in the head, right? Ahead. You are thinking all these moves ahead, which takes you out of your intuition, your heart, etc. But when you start opening your third eye, that intuition becomes louder. That energetic kind of download becomes louder, and it starts becoming more a part of the equation in your decision making and in the way you start moving in your everyday life. And I can just tell you from having worked with people, teaching this stuff at a high level, helping people essentially go through a process that helps them open their third eye more permanently and live in this way. This is what begins to happen as you start doing this. You start living more intuitively, and a lot of things start falling apart that you were holding together, even though they're not serving your life, and they get taken care of. And you start basically making the best move you could possibly make time and time again. So again, to put this in more layman's terms, you will feel more emotions like joy, happiness, peace, and love. You'll notice inspiration is easier to hear and access and is actually quite clear a lot of the time. You'll notice that things in your life begin to flow and many things begin to take care of themselves. You'll notice that understanding what the best next move for you is becomes simple and easy to become aware of, and that what you need to do next becomes very clear and in many cases joyful and effortless. And how much better would your life be? How much more would you be excited or into it if that was the case with your life? It just flowed in that way. All of those things I just mentioned was kind of your equilibrium, was kind of like how your lifestyle, the way in which you lived. It's hard not to have a fulfilled life when you're moving in that way. And this is something opening the third eye can help give you access to. Now, ultimately, I can't do complete justice to how this is going to be in your experience when you open it. But these are some of the common things that can happen when you do. Ultimately, what's going to show you exactly how it's going to be for you is to do some of the things that we're going to go over next and start opening it up. I just gave some of the things that definitely, or at least usually happen for most people. You might have some of them, you might have all of them. I doubt you'll have none of them, but you may find it unfolds in different ways for you. But again, it's always in ways from a greater place of wisdom, from a greater intuition, and something that will always positively affect your growth in life. So the first step to unlocking your third eye is awareness. Now, you've already taken that first step to a degree by watching this video, but there's a further first step that goes along with this first step, and it's keeping it in your awareness. And what I mean is where focus goes is where energy flows. So you might watch this video and then you go, oh, this is great. I've learned this thing, and now it becomes this heady knowledge for you. And then you go off and just kind of go through your day as you've always done it. Well, this is not keeping in mind then the awarenesses that you've learned. Your awareness is what your attention is on at this very moment. What are you shining the light of your awareness and attention on? And so if we want to make this a lifestyle where we move in accordance to the information that's coming through, having opened the third eye, if we want to benefit from the amazing benefits that can come through and flow naturally into our lives through opening this, through accessing our pineal gland, through opening the sixth chakra, the third eye, then we need to keep our awareness there as much as possible, right? We can't be distracted and go back down into doing heady things all the time. You can't have your cake and eat it too, so to speak, right? You can either live primarily in a heady way, where the head is what dictates what you do, or you can live in a way that's more aligned to universal principles and intuitive. Does that mean you won't use your head? No, your head is an amazing tool. It's there for a reason. Your five senses are there for a reason. But if it's leading the show, and it's where most of your awareness is, and it's the level of awareness your decisions come from, well, then it won't benefit you, right? This information won't benefit you because you're not paying attention to it, remembering it enough in order to use it in a way that's practical and actually impacts your life. So that's the first thing, is to continually bring this back into your awareness. You can watch videos like this over and over again, or you can watch similar stuff. There are programs like mine where we go on a 6-month journey with people for this reason, so that they're learning these things, applying them, and making it a lifestyle. Now, that being said, let's talk about some of the practices that you can do, most of this daily, in order to start unlocking this more and more, keep it in your awareness, and just start living more in this way. Now, the first thing I want to mention, because it's really important to do so, is a healthy lifestyle. I'm sure you've heard of the idea of the calcification of the pineal gland. Again, the physical representation of your third eye. Now, again, we could get into the conspiracy of it and the agenda of it, but that's not really going to help us right now, right here, to go into some kind of victim state and being like, oh, the government put stuff in our, whatever it is, right? Or, they made us eat an unhealthy diet. It's great to be aware of these things so you don't fall into the trap. Again, seeing through kind of that mainstream belief system so it doesn't affect you so much. But ultimately, it's like, how is this going to serve you? What can we do to serve you? So a healthy lifestyle, especially pay attention to what you're eating. There's many different ways in which you can eat. When you become more intuitive, you'll start to learn what your body wants, unless you're being told to eat cookies and, Trix cereal or Fruity Pebbles. Probably not what your intuition wants. That's probably what your head's trying to convince you that you want. But ultimately, you'll start to learn what it is that your body actually wants. And when you start eating cleaner foods, higher vibration foods, it starts to decalcify your pineal gland, which ultimately makes it easier to access. Again, so many of us in our diets and everyday diets, believe it or not, have consumed things like metals that have accumulated in our body. If we've drank very poor water, this can be the case as well. Also the way which we think and kind of just the kind of mainstream negative attitude can also cause this to be the case, kind of closing up that third eye. But again, this is reversible. So eating healthy foods, moving a lot as well, exercise. It can be something as simple as 30 minutes a day of walking to even, to start out with, and then building from there. But ultimately, your body was designed to move. It helps the blood flow through your body. It helps your lymphatic system, which is kind of the sewage system of your body, to circulate and to keep moving, and that's also going to help you in this journey of accessing this part of you. Just being generally healthy is going to help you access certain things within yourself, including the third eye. It's very hard to do it. I don't think it's impossible, but it's very hard to do it if you're unhealthy. So a good healthy lifestyle where you're eating well, where you're moving, where you're also, encouraging healthier thoughts is going to go a long way in general to helping you access this. And the second one is one of my favorites, and this is breathwork. Breathwork is amazing at activating the pineal gland and releasing DMT. There are people who can get so deep with breathwork, they can essentially go on like a vision quest or, something similar, kind of have these things come to them, these images and things like that, every time they do breathwork. And the more you do breathwork, the more you kind of train yourself to be able to activate the pineal gland, to get it to vibrate, which is what allows for the DMT to be released. I personally love to do breath work every single day, usually Wim Hof. Sometimes I'll do other methods. There's a lot of other methods out there. But I love this, again, because not only does it help me to, again, put attention on the pineal gland, it's great at releasing. There's so many benefits to it. So if you're just starting out, I would look into Wim Hof breathing and go from there to go even deeper. And again, breathwork is an amazing, amazing tool to help you activate your third eye. Again, vibrate the pineal gland. Dr. Joe Dispenza also has a meditation. I believe it's called the Energy Center Meditation, where you essentially do breathwork and you draw the energy up from your root chakra or the base chakra all the way up to your pineal gland, and also I think to your crown chakra. And there are meditations you can do, or breath works you can do, where you take it from the root and you draw the energy up. You're drawing power up and you're resting it in your pineal gland, which causes it to vibrate. And this, in my experience, has been one of the most powerful ways to physically, actively vibrate the pineal gland. So there is a way to do that. I mean, you can even try that right now. But ultimately, what I would also say is, remember that where focus goes, energy flows. If you were just to breathe very deeply and focus on your pineal gland in the center of your forehead. Again, look at the diagram if you want an actual visual representation of where it's at, if that helps you. But if you just focus your energy there and you breathe into it even just deeply, you'll start to notice a sensation right here in the middle of your forehead. Again, for some of you, it might be quicker you notice this. For others, it might take a little bit of practice depending on where you are on your journey. But ultimately, by putting your focus there, through your attention, through your awareness, you're shining a light on it, which will activate it. And that's the last one I want to give you, is to simply meditate and keep your attention on that pineal gland. You have to understand that this becomes a lifestyle. You can't kind of go off and live a very heady, just physical existence where you ignore the spirit, where you ignore, kind of these other factors and parts of you. We're mind, body, and spirit, with spirit being the foundation, remembering that 99.6 more nines is empty space, energy in this universe. And so I would encourage you and invite you, with that information now in your arsenal, in your repertoire, to give more attention to the energetic realm, the spiritual realm, to that part of us that literally the physical comes out of. And that's what we're getting at with this. When you open the third eye, you gain access more to that realm, to the messaging, to the benefits of that. Right? And so by meditating and keeping your focus on the pineal gland, or just being in the moment as well, breathing into the moment, you'll find that you also start to open this up. You also start to gain access to these insights, to your intuition, and just being in those moments more often during the day. Because a lot of times people can think, I'm doing a 10-minute meditation every day and 10-minute breath work and that's it. But can you find moments during the day to come back and root yourself in the pineal gland or third eye, or into the moment, things that will also help activate it? Are you feeling really heady? Can you take a moment just to do 10 conscious breaths in order to bring yourself, back into what you are, instead of getting involved with all this heady stuff that might be happening in your world, right? And again, that we're creating stories around and just rooting ourselves more in our head, and not in our head like into the pineal gland, but into the ego, the mind, this kind of thing, right? And so throughout the day, I've even heard strategies of like having a rubber band like on your wrist, and every time you kind of go off into the headiness, to kind of snap yourself, right, a little bit, and then maybe take a few deep breaths to bring yourself back into the moment. Now, if you want to work closer with me and actually my mentor in order to help you activate your third eye, but not just activate it, but to live a lifestyle where you are living in accordance to it, basically where you're living in flow, where you are co-creating and cooperating with the universe and natural principles. A way we like to describe it is you are moving with the river, with the full power of the river at your back, instead of swimming against it. If that's a way in which you want to live, and you are truly committed to actually living in that way and doing something that's going to almost guarantee you will, you can check out the links down below to help you out. I would especially take a look at the 5 keys to lasting transformation, which I have linked down below. It is a free training you can gain access to that's going to give you basically the 5 things you need in place in order to live a life where you're living from the messaging, the intuition coming through the third eye, where you're living in flow, in this cooperative way with life. So you can check that out down below. Now, one of the reasons that unlocking your third eye is so crucial to your life is something called the mirror principle, which I'm going to link over here, a video I did on it, a deep dive into it. When you understand the mirror principle, you'll start realizing why accessing the energetic part of yourself is so important. So if you're unaware of the mirror principle, or if you don't know it at a deep level, I would recommend you go watch that video next.